Okay, so we'll do an opening chant and then we'll begin. Okay. Duara sara santeru. Duara sara santeru. Duara sara santeru. Duara sara santeru. Okay, so this evening, we'll do a review of everything that we've discussed thus far. I found during the Beta classes, one of the things that came out of it in doing these long courses is that from the beginning, we probably should have been doing periodic reviews, but we went like almost 2 divisions without doing a review. So we don't want to get into that again, with this text. So you have the 2 combatants, and to be clear, this is a nice artistic rendition, a nice drawing, painting. And on the left is Heru, and on the right is Sed. And they both have scimitars, and they're facing off against each other. But to be clear, these combatants are 2 aspects of a personality. So these are 2 aspects of a single human being. Heru is your spiritual aspirational component. And Set is your ego. And they're in conflict with each other. So aspiration and ego, but as you'll see, it's more than simply aspiration that is actually in conflict with the ego. It's actually your light of spirit consciousness that is in conflict with the ego. Okay, so we can skip these and go directly to the text. So Hatsab, Shad, Kemt, Usis, Nu, Met, Fedu, and Behudet, Ra, Harakti, Ankh, Jeter, Erethe, Un, An. So today we'll skip the translations and we'll go directly to the narratives. Here is the foremost dignitary of the 364th year of his reign as Behudet Ra Harakti. So we are being told, as we've discussed, and as you can see in the text, we're being confronted with various aspects of Heru. But not only that, various aspects of Heru Behudet. As you recall, we have the main divinities of this teaching are Asar, Aset, and Heru. You have various aspects of Asar, such as Asar Kenti, Asar Unefer, and you have various aspects of Heru Behudet, and this is one. The point being made is that these principles are various aspects of the same principle. They're the same principle manifesting in many different ways. Once you get that, then the various names of the personalities is not so confusing. There's a one personality, and that one personality has various forms. And it's called henotheism. Henotheism means that there's one supreme being, and from what that one supreme being comes the many. But that's even sort of a simplistic way of looking at it. Is the one supreme being manifesting as the many who themselves manifest as various forms. So from the one comes a multiplicity. And you've learned and should have been reflecting upon some serious spiritual principles that have come through the first, I think, 9 or 10 lives that we've done thus far already. That is to say, the supreme spirit of sustaining power of Heru. So you have an aspect of yourself that's called Heru. And that Heru aspect of your personality is sustained by the supreme spirit. So whenever you feel to meditate or to chant or to perform spiritual practice or anything like that, what is behind it is a spirit consciousness. Universal spirit is behind it. So there's something compelling you beyond the mundane. And that is your true divine nature that is compelling you. But the problem is that this one gets in the way. Set gets in the way. So it's hard to identify and align oneself with that supreme spirit. And therefore, you have your Heru aspect, your Heru Behudet aspect, which is the aspect that actually brings about what we're talking about now. The process of being able to identify with Supreme Spirit. So Heru, I'll put Heru in green, has been conscripted. So he has been drafted as the counterforce to the egoism and the delusion. Now, remember, this is happening within you. This is occurring within your personality. It's not something outside of yourself. And it's a very important point to understand from the get-go, from verse 1. That this process that we are talking about is an internal process that's being expressed mythologically. So the myth is expressing an internal process. So he's supreme force, supreme energy, immutability of spirit essence, manifesting as warrior. You follow? So supreme spirit, supreme force, supreme energy, meaning spirit essence, immutability of spirit essence, is manifesting as warrior. Is Heru. So there is something within you that is compelling, that is driving, that is engaging the spiritual process. And what that is, the force behind it is spirit essence. And the energy and the compatibility that you feel with the spiritual path, that is the warrior, that is a manifestation of spirit. And that is happening, again, within you. So these are the keys from line 1. Line 2, RFM, Nether, FM, Dappet, Kest, Meshal, F, Her, F, Anpaz, Z, N, Yeah, every time you close the document and open it, they put up the highlights for incorrect spelled words. And I don't want to turn it off, but you think, how many times we have to do this? So verse 2. So verse 1, that your spirit essence and that energy you feel for spiritual work, that spirit is manifesting as that. The majestic Father who has marshaled his forces. And so we're not going to talk about the forces yet. Let's take a moment and talk about what it means to marshal the forces. And what that means is conjuring certain attributes of a qualified initiate. Someone who is mature, and someone who has certain attributes, the personality. In other words, you're not the type of person who, when you hear the spiritual teaching, you try to find a way to contradict it. You accept the teaching, you try to understand the teaching, and if the teaching or the teacher says that let's say that eating flesh food is dangerous to your health, you're not going to go out and try to prove the teaching or the teacher wrong. And then you have others, like let's say that the teaching or the teacher says that the world is illusory. You don't try to go and make the world real. Like when I was first started teaching, I used to make the mistake, and that's why I can share with you what the mistakes are, because I made them. I made the mistake of trying to talk to my friends at the time about the teaching that I was coming into. And one day I told one of my friends that the world is illusory. I should have never said that out of the context of the teaching. I said it within the context of, a conversation with someone. What do you mean the world is illusory? Can't you see it's real? Look at that. That is right there. It's real. And that is not the proper way of conveying the teaching. Is a mistake I made. Because those people are not ready, they're not prepared. They have not marshaled the forces of humility, of willingness, of being a shem, meaning to follow. And so the forces of resiliency. So you have to learn to be resilient. These are key terms. Resiliency. So when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. You've heard that before. So if you're having difficulty, or you're struggling with a principle or a concept, or your meditation is not going exactly the way you want it to, you're not the type that's like what's called like soda pop religion. You know, the soda pop. You get a Coke and you shake it up and you open it and it pops out, right? But then it fizzles away. And many people are like that. They're popping out and they're bubbly in the beginning, but then when they really have to get down to the real work of spiritual evolution, they fizzle away. They can't handle it, so they don't stick with it. So you need resiliency. You need to have a resilient personality. These are your forces. These are the main generals of your army. You need to have courage. You need to have courage. And the text later on, as you saw, speaks directly to courage. The text calls it dender, valor. So not only being resilient, but also being courageous. Courageous means the capacity to face the trouble at hand. And the trouble at hand is your own ego. But you are the light. You are the spirit consciousness principle that is up against your ego. So you can see that it's a very subtle process that is taking place. It's not really it's not an overt or gross process that is taking place. It's subtle, it's occurring within your personality. And then you must have fortitude. So you have to be strong, you have to be capable. So you need resiliency, you need courage, you need fortitude. So you need some form of inner strength. And the key to this is you have to conjure these aspects of your personality. You have to conjure them. They don't just come about out of nowhere unless you were born with them, which is possible. You could have done some work previously and develop and have some of these capacities develop. And then in your current lifetime, you don't have to work so hard at it. The capacity to take insult and injury. And so being able to, not being a reactive animal, basically. And this is where, if your mind becomes purified, then you develop a greater capacity to take insult and injury. Because your instinctual mind becomes purified and you're not so reactive. If someone insults you, it's no big deal. In fact, if someone insults you, what exactly are they insulting? Is your personality is illusory. You are actually spirit consciousness. So you can't insult spirit because spirit really doesn't give a damn. And you can't insult ego because the ego is illusory. But if the ego is impure and gets hold of that insult, then it turns around and wants to insult back, to fight back, to an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, that kind of thing, to injure if injured. And that's basically living the life of an animal. That's how animals are. And we are humanizing ourselves so that we can spiritualize ourselves. We are not animals. So the capacity to take insult and to take injury. I use this word take because that's like a colloquial term. Like this is how we speak here in St. Croix. But a better term would be capacity to bear insult and injury. Yeah, to bear it, to not be, to not be so on guard. And it's not really being on guard. It's being reactive. It's being instinctual. And what you're to be is measured and calm and relaxed in the face of injury and insult. So the next time someone insults you, see it as a blessing. as the opportunity to practice the capacity to bear insult and injury. Just look at the and you can even smile to yourself when someone insults you. Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad that this happened. Now let's see what I do with it. But you're smiling on yourself, to yourself internally. And then if you're able to do that, you weaken their aggression. You weaken the other person. And you elevate yourself. And spreads his soldiers of righteousness over the land, into the foreign lands. And remember, we spoke about what this means. We spoke about how this means that these capacities that you conjure, they're not only for in your house when you're dealing with your family. They're not only for work when you're dealing with your coworkers. Or wherever you might feel comfortable exhibiting these qualities. They are for everywhere. So you have to spread them over the land. These are your armies, your soldiers that you're spreading over the land. The homeland and the foreign lands. So it's not to be, it is to engender these higher spiritual qualities wherever you are, wherever your personality happens to be. And who you're counter-forcing pride, arrogance, jealousy, vanity, put you in yellow. That's what you're up against. And so I chose these words carefully. These are strong ways in which the ego expresses feelings of pride, feelings of arrogance, feelings of jealousy, feelings of vanity. These are strong ways that the ego concretizes your personality. He faces off against all those who do not do this act of bravery of facing the truths of egoism and stand up in the face of unrighteousness. And we saw Heru Behudet. He has his arrows and his bow. And who does this remind you of? Who also has arrows and a bow? It's the goddess Net. And the royal personality is making an offering of arrows and bow to Heru, who is also holding arrows and bow. So it's a reciprocation. Awi neb zenti nu dawi kestet bremen ra penum. Men and women consciously think of you, Lord of the two lands. In this place, it is you who exist as Ra, the creator spirit, who sustains the lands. The conscious thought allows these men and women to embark on this journey where you have established the plane upon which this battle is to be waged. So the Aoi, the conscious thought, meaning that you are consciously aware of the problem of human existence, which is the ego. You're consciously aware of that. You're consciously aware that there is this internal struggle within you. So you have a conscious awareness of what is occurring, what is happening. You're not going through it blindly. And it's just happening and things are going on and that's okay and all of this kind of thing. You must be consciously aware of what it is that is taking place. So you have to know that you're in a struggle, and the struggle is with this duality that is expressing through your personality. And the struggle is to discover that you are not a dual being, that you are the non-dual self. Okay, but you have to be aware of that. It's an awareness that you must come in contact with, that you must realize. The A is made with the bird. The A is made with the bird. Au, wu. So aui, because there are two of them together. This is like a piece of rope coiled up. The determinative is the man with his hand to his mouth. So, and the mouth is a metaphor for the unconscious, or for the mind. So the implication being that this is a thought, it is a psychological process. So being consciously aware of the divine, consciously aware of your own divinity. So this is a whole process. To begin, recognizing that your spiritual movement is actually a manifestation of spirit. And your Heru aspect has been conscripted by soul. So in other words, drafted to enter into this battle. And that the manifestation of your Heru aspect is just that, is a manifestation. It's something that is emerging from spirit, soul, essence. And now that this warrior aspect is manifested, you are the head of the army. So you have to bring up your soldiers, get your pals on your side. You need resiliency, courage, fortitude, bear insult and injury. And that's the second step. And the third step is being consciously aware of what it is that is going on with you. And not be in ignorance of what is happening with you. And what is happening is that spirit is forging forward. And why? Is because your Ari, you have generated the proper Ari for it to happen. And usually it occurs when you face hardships, when you face trying circumstances, loss of something, or profound humiliation. You become disillusioned about life because of being betrayed by someone, or some troubling issue, something. And now you want to have, now you're seeking a solution to the disillusionment that was produced by disappointment. Disappointment in people, disappointment in life. People who come into your life that can talk a good game, but when it really gets to it, then they back out. They're not ready. Or people who outright stab you in your back, that you put trust in. Or people who outright betray you. And all that is the world showing you that there's nothing in the world that can truly satisfy you. There's nothing in the world that can truly redeem the soul. And there's nothing in the world that can truly fulfill you. Why? Because essentially you are spirit being. Thus, it is you, Ra, who have set in place the battlefield. So it is creator spirit, it is spirit being that is setting up the struggle, and so in other words, it's your own spirit essence that is throwing you in the battle so that you can redeem the soul to discover that you are that spirit essence. So it's really not you, your ego, doing anything. It is spirit compelling soul to discover spirit. And this spirit, your Amun self is the observer. Observes this battle. And thus it is the spirit that remains a witness to the struggle and turmoil of the war within. So that this is very important that the spirit within is what is setting up your struggles in life to sharpen your metal, to make you stronger, essentially. So if you have an issue with life, take it up with God. And then if you're sincere, then God will lead you to the truth of why you're in the situation that you're in. And the truth of that is that you are essentially spirit being. Masquerading as human. F Shemsu Men Depet F Heru Ma'at Sab Kestet En Sepet Jez Abdet. Ra in his boat, traversing the three relative planes of temporal existence. And we've discussed this extensively through our various classes. The three relative planes, the Ta, the earth, the Pet, the heaven, the Duat, the astral plane, the conscious, the subconscious, and the unconscious, all relative. The morning, the afternoon, and the night, all relative. So therefore, time is relative. Traversing the three relative planes of temporal existence of Ra in its forms of Kepra, Ra, and Tem. His followers are established in this sacred bark of Heru. And here, the bark of Heru is being conflated with the bark of Ra. So in other words, spirit being is traversing a spirit consciousness through the relative planes of existence. In his district of Ma'at, if you are of Ma'atian consciousness, there's truth, righteousness, order, and so your spirit consciousness is traversing through the relative planes, and therefore your spirit consciousness is not relegated to a spiritual plane, a individual or a particular spiritual plane, but traverses through all the planes of relative existence. You follow? So your spirit consciousness pervades through time. And the spirit consciousness is what is stationary, and time is what is movable. And what is stationary is what is real, and what is movable is what is illusory. So time is like a movie playing over a screen of spirit consciousness. And you can look at it this way. Spirit consciousness is traversing through time, but is not affected by time. It is not bounded by time. And since it's passing through time, it is a discerning factor to the illusory nature of time. And so, firstly, you have to allow this Heru consciousness to be born within you. You have to conjure your forces, and you have to be consciously aware of what is going on. You have to hold that conscious awareness throughout all the realms of relativity, meaning through the realms of time. And if you're doing that, you realize that the ego, now you're pushing the ego into a defensive position. The ego cannot withstand the pressure of consciousness through time. It will have to abate, and it will have to serve the higher consciousness. That is to say, established in spiritual vigor through righteousness of heart and order of spiritual practice. Heru is he who is dignified within his district, and they who are his followers are also dignified as he is. Heru is he who is dignified within his district. So we're talking about Edfu, city of Edfu. And those who are followers of Heru are also dignified. The reason why is the term follow. Follow actually means to emulate. So if you're emulating Heru, you adopt Heru's status. So if Heru is dignified, then you are dignified. And you're dignified because you are established in that truth of creator spirit. You follow? Heru is established in that truth of creator spirit. You follow Heru, you become established in the truth of creative spirit. And through that, you become as dignified as Heru. So you're emulating Heru. And you emulate Heru because Goddess Net, she is the one who is going to set down the law regarding your royalship. She's the one who is remember, she's going to crash heaven and earth if the Aeneid, if the gods and goddesses don't realize that the throne belongs to Heru. So she sets the status. But for her to announce that the throne is yours, then you have to be as Heru. And if you are Heru, then she says, okay, you are the rightful heir to the throne. So, yeah, I don't want you to lose sight of the greater philosophical implication of this teaching with regard to a goddess net philosophy. This is the philosophy that allows her to make that announcement. So it's not like we're doing this Heru scripture, so we're only studying Heru. No, we're studying Heru, the Heru principle that Goddess Net establishes as the heir to the throne. So if you know the Heru principle, you know what to generate, then you are working in favor of Goddess Net establishing you as the heir to the throne of Kemet. And what that means is the heir to the throne of realization of spirit soul. So that's how it works together. Okay, so we're going to move along here because we're working short on time. He rises in the east as the Heru, spirit consciousness of profound spiritual aspiration, rises in the east through the power of truth of Ma'at, in which this consciousness of spirit emerges in the mind of his followers, those who embark on a journey of spiritual mastery through the inculcation of Ma'atian immersion, being established in the awareness of spirit consciousness throughout all the lands, wherever they may go, in whatever place they may be upon the land, in whatever district. As Heru rises in the east, and so he's rising as Heru Akuti, that is to say, consciousness of spirit within the spirit awareness. He pa henu mu jetu asad Heru Behudet. Recall, we spent a great deal of time on this line because this now is the turning point of the journey. So you've established that there's a struggle going on. You've established that Heru is the counterforce to the inimical power that is trying to control you. You realize that your willingness to confront that inimical force is a manifestation of spirit itself within you as you are manifesting as the warrior. And you realize that you can't just go at this. You need some warriors on your side. You need some soldiers. So you build up your soldiers: resiliency, courage, fortitude, bear insult and injury. Then you have to come to terms with the idea that you must be consciously aware of the process that is happening within you, and that spirit being, like you are spirit consciousness within the boat of spirit being. So you're becoming consciously aware of the higher spirit reality within you. And that awareness, it is what is going to take you through. And what is going to solidify that awareness is that you're realizing now that, wait a minute, I am a Sar as Heru Behudet fighting this battle. So it's really soul against ego, spirit soul in counterforce to ego. And so you have to see yourself as spirit soul as counterforce to ego. Spirit soul manifesting as Heru Behudet. And why is Asar doing this? Firstly, he says, I exist as Heru Behudet. That is to say, the vital power of valorous soul within spiritual force. The spiritual force is Heru Behudet, valorous soul is Asar. It is myself, Asar, who is taking on a battle against Set in my form of Heru Behudet, to overturn what has happened to me and thus authenticate myself as the true secret mystery of the throne. And the only one that can substantiate that authentication is Goddess Net. She's the one that says, and basically what she's saying is that this is spirit essence that ought to sit on the throne of spirit essence. Basically, that's what she's saying. And so the secret mystery of the throne is Asar sitting on the throne. That throne has been left for you. And then when you sit on that throne, you realize that you have been on that throne all along as Asar. Actually, that throne is yours as Asar. And Heru Behudet is a manifestation of that soul that is countervening the force of ego. So you're putting all of that together. And now you have to do, now that you know who you are, if I ask you who you are, you say, I am Asar manifesting as Heru Behudet. That's who you are. You go, the Neb pet her seneb remen hu pinu mau sebu kendri her pet zesh and fm her senu en. The next step is now you have to you have to ascertain the rebels, the enemies. The Lord of heaven is sustained by a power of existent spirit, which allows for the capacity to see and ascertain the rebels, set cohorts who are the enemies of the soul. This sight allows for the rebels to be restrained and held back from their capacity to influence the personality to act in egoistic ways. That is to say, denude, to strip away the illusory facade of the negative egoism of the personality and lay bare the under reality of the egoistic principles of mind. The spirit light is the face of heaven which illuminates that which was opaque and brings into focus of the mind the negative forces that are impeding the vision of the higher self. This spiritual path is a journey, and this journey concerns spirit consciousness of. So you have to see your sebao, and you have to kendri, you have to restrain them. So you have to know who the rebels are. Anger, jealousy, pride, insolence, all of that. And then you have to restrain them. Once that you have acknowledged, and what you have to do is really, you have to, how it should truly be done is taking some time to sit by yourself and contemplating and coming to the realization that I am spirit soul. And since I am spirit soul, I have to conjure my Heru Behudet aspect and grab a hold of these fiends, these rebels, these enemies, and constrain them and tie them down so you don't give them expression because they're not who you are. You are spirit soul. And here we showed examples from the temple of Raharakti at Abu Simbel of the enemies being tied up and being led out of the temple. And then we came to the great Denden, valor. How you have to develop valor, positive spiritual power, spiritual force, spiritual vitality. And you're doing this as a counterforce to the fiends, to the enemies of pride, insolence, concupiscence, passion, anger, all of this. And your emblem is the warrior that has held down the fiends and is clubbing them. And obviously these are metaphors. And so you need spiritual strength, spiritual valor. And what does valor mean? Great courage in the face of danger, especially battle. And the term for that from the scripture is denden, spiritual valor. So how does this rise up? It rises up as okay, let's say this is just a gross example of the principle. Let's say you're driving and someone cuts you off, and the next thing you know, you're angry, you're upset. And what has happened is that the enemy has risen up, and instead of giving that enemy full expression, You have to, and that's the danger, giving it full expression. You have to show your courage, and you have to express and exhibit the courage to reduce the anger. And that's what Tutankhamun is doing here by trampling the fiends. Verse 8, they do not hear, restrain two ears them, cause penetrate. But let's go to the narrative without reading the glyphs, cause of time. This caused them to not hear with their two ears, and as such, the outward flowing senses are made not to operate, cutting off their capacity for sensorial perception. Remember, we spoke about this, drawing back the senses in meditation. This makes the powers of the fiends ineffectual. If you do that practice enough times, long enough, the power of the fiends will start to reduce over time. And when they become reduced and ineffectual, you develop a single pointedness of mind in which duality is being brought to a singular point. You stay there long enough, something else happens. Then verse 9, they are brought to life immortality in his boat, that of Heru Behudet, a Sokar, where the outward various sensorial propensities become regenerated and transformed. So you're regenerating and you're transforming your senses. And so we'll pick up with the new line next week. Remember, we spoke about the oryx, and we spoke about the water buffalo. These are your animals for reflection. The horse, another animal for reflection. The bow and the arrows, elements for reflection. The skir, an instrument for reflection, and what and how it's used. And they're being used on the enemies within. And the enemies within are these. Okay, so that's our review. And so keep these things in mind. So when we go forward next week. So now you see how it's all laid out step by step, and the journey continues. And the essential points, this is internal. Okay. So we'll have a closing chant, and then that will be it for this evening. Heru Makiru, Heru Makiru, Heru Makiru, Heru Makiru, Heru Makiru. Bedtime. Do everyone until we meet again. Bedtime.
Do it. Behudet.